Welcome. This short video is an example of play from the game The War, Europe, 1939 to 1945, a strategic level game of World War II in Europe. The example uses scenario number 1, Poland, 1939, Blitzkrieg, Act 1, Scene 1. The setup is not necessarily optimal. Regardless, Poland is at a disadvantage with a third-rate army and a third-rate air force and having to set up prior to the Germans. As the Polish army is third-rate, they are allowed to stack only one ground unit per hex. Only Warsaw has 2 units of 4 or 5 infantry and a 1-string tactical air unit called Attack. The German army is first-rate, and they may stack up to 3 ground units per hex. All German ground units are on the western border, with a single 6-5 infantry in 1 hex, then a hex with attack unit on an air base, a fighter based on the clear terrain, attack based in the city, with 3 ground units, an 8-8 armor, 6-5 infantry, and a 4-8 mech. Continuing, the next hex has an 8-8 armor, 6-5 infantry, a 4-8 mech, an air base that holds a 1-factor attack unit, and located in central Germany is a medium bomber. On to first impulse movement, and this begins with the German 6-5 infantry marching 2 hexes. Next, a stack of 3 ground units, a 4-8 mech, a 6-5 infantry, and an 8-8 armor move 1 hex. Then 3 ground units start adjacent to a 2-5 Polish infantry, and they remain in place. This concludes the German player's first impulse movement. A single battle hex is declared on the 2-5 Polish infantry located on the Polish-German border. After all battles are declared, air support is allocated. First OAS, Offensive Air Support, then DAS, Defensive Air Support. All available German air units will fly OAS to the single battle hex. Given the large German air force, the Polish unit declines a sortie and will wait for another opportunity. We now move on to the ground combat phase. The Germans have 42 combat factors, from 3 6-factor infantry units, 2 8-factor army units, and 2 4-factor mechs. Air support may provide a maximum shift of 2 columns using either TAC and or medium bombers. And here there is a 2-column shift for air support, with a -3 die roll modifier for force nationality differential. The Polish unit has 2 factors, which is doubled on defense to 4. The final odds are 5-1, the maximum on the ground CRT, with a -3 die roll modifier. The defender is eliminated. The air units return to base, the defender's hex is vacated, and advance after combat is allowed into the defender's hex. As the combat involved at least 1 armor unit, a breach occurs, represented by the breach marker, which allows up to 6 ground units to move and stack in the defender's hex. 6 German units take advantage of the advance, with 2 8-8 armor units, 2 4-8 mech units, and 2 6-5 infantry units. Each armor and mech unit in the breach gains a Schwerpunkt marker, which confers a -1 die roll modifier to eligible combats in the second impulse combat phase. Second impulse movement begins for armor, mech, and cav units. As the German army is first-rate, all German armor, mech, and cav units may move their full movement factors -1. Also, as first-rate, German ground units may undertake an automatic victory, or AV, which is combat during movement. An AV may occur either during the first or second impulse movement. Moving from the breach hex, a stack of 3 units will use AV on the Polish 2-5 infantry unit in the adjacent hex. AV combat is resolved with the units moving into the hex. Here, an 8-8 armor and 2 4-8 mech units. An AV requires an odds ratio of at least 6-1, and units utilizing AV may continue to move and of course be involved in subsequent ground combats during that impulse. Any units adjacent to the hex undergoing an AV may contribute factors to the combat if that unit has not yet moved this impulse and if is eligible for combat. Here, a single 8-8 armor still in the breach hex may add its strength to the combat, as armor units are eligible for second impulse movement and combat. However, the adjacent infantry units may not contribute to second impulse movement AV, as they are not eligible. Air units may provide OAS for each AV in the movement impulse. The air units may be used to ensure the minimum odds ratio of 6-1 for successful AV. Here, a single TAC unit will contribute to the AV. For the automatic victory, the moving stack has a combat strength of 16 factors, with the adjacent armor providing another 8 for a total of 24. The TAC air provides a column shift. The Sol 2-5 infantry is not doubled on defense. The final odds are well above 6 to 1. No die roll modifiers are used for AV. Note if the Polish had placed a 4-5 infantry in the hex, an AV would still be possible. With the AV over, the air units return to base, and the ground units may keep moving, but will stop in the defender's hex. Now, second impulse battles are declared with just a single battle against the units in Warsaw, using all adjacent German armor and mech units, the only units eligible for second impulse combat. Through the use of the AV, Warsaw is attacked from at least one hex without a river hex side. The units in Warsaw will have no river hex side defensive bonuses. Air support is next, and here the German fly offensive air support with 7 factors, 3 from the fighters, 3 from 3 TACs, and 1 from a medium bomber, and the Polish Air Force will fly defensive air support with the lone 1-factor Polish TAC. The odds are 7 to 1. The highest column on the air CRT is 4 to 1, with a -3 die roll modifier for nationality, a first-rate attacker versus a third-rate defender. The Polish air unit is eliminated, thus all German TAC and medium bombers may provide support in the upcoming ground combat. Air units lost are removed. And on to ground combat. The German total strength is 24 from 2 8-factor armor units and 2 4-factor mech units, and the Polish defense is 5. 4 for the infantry, not doubled on defense due to the second impulse combat by enemy armor in clear terrain, with a +1 for the city. The basic odds are 4 to 1 with a 2-column shift for the attacker due to air support. The die roll modifier is -3 for force differential, a first-rate attacker versus a third-rate defender. The presence of the city in the defender's hex cancels any Schwerpunkt bonus. The final odds are 5 to 1 with a -3 die roll modifier. The Polish unit is eliminated. The German units advance into Warsaw. With the capital Poland falling to the German, Poland is immediately conquered. All remaining Polish units are removed from play. The lights go out in Europe as World War II has begun. The War, Europe 1939 to 1945, is produced by Compass Games and Ernie Copley Design. May all your die rolls be good. Thank you, and good night.